Hello everyone. GMGM. Welcome to Web3 Magic Podcast. Here I talk with builders of some of the most interesting projects across Web3 space. Interesting by the use case, not by the price of a token. So let's warm up with music and let's jump into today's episode.
Because of Filecoin and Helium, that we decided that it makes sense to try this new approach, the DEPIN, the Decentralized Physical Network approach that we're doing today with WeatherXM.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I am here with Manos, and I am super excited to have him on because he's one of a few projects which is actually hardware. There's something to touch, something nice you can put into your garden or in your house, probably. And I've told him before we started that I'm a big hardware fan because I worked on some hardware projects myself, and I was impressed with the Helium's progress over the past probably 3 years. So, welcome, Manos. Very happy to have you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in. I always ask, the first question is, how did you ended up in crypto? How you got here?
How long do you want this answer to be?
It depends.
Okay, let me give you I'll try to squeeze it, but there's a funny element into this. So we came up with this. So the team has been together in WeatherXM. The team has been together for many years, and the project goes back in a vague kind of way. It goes back to 2012.
Oh wow!
So in 2012, we were 4 colleagues. We were working in a research facility as computer engineers here in Greece, and we decided we want to try. To see the startup side of things. So we're trying to come up with some ideas to build a product and trying to monetize on our product and so on. And that's when the original idea was created of WeatherXM. But at the time, it had nothing to do with crypto. It was a crowdsourced weather observation network. So the vision was, let's build a global network similar to Weather Underground, if you're familiar, which was popular at the time. And and let's do a better job than what Weather Underground did. And let's put our own hardware into that and those sort of things. And so that first attempt, we ended up in Silicon Valley at some point in San Francisco, a team of a few friends, the colleagues I was talking about. And we were pitching to investors this crazy idea of a global weather network. And it didn't go very well, as you can imagine, because we were all engineers. We had no idea how to approach this from an entrepreneurial point of view. And during that time, we were discussing among ourselves about this new idea that is called Bitcoin. And I was like, this is stupid. This is like, who cares? Like, let's build this weather network. Who cares about Bitcoin now? So it has been on our radar since forever, the crypto side of things. It's just that it took us many, many years to come up with a way to combine the two. And it was actually because of Filecoin and Helium that we decided that it makes sense to try this new approach, the DEPIN, the Decentralized Physical Network approach that we're doing today with WeatherXM.
Oh, I see. Impressive. So is it fair to assume that it's still the same team? Like, you guys started almost together, you're still together?
Yeah, one of my co-founders, Stratos, we've been together since that trip. Then other people joined the effort over the years. So the core team has been together for about 7 years now, I think, since 2015.
Impressive. Okay. How long did it take to develop your own hardware?
Whoa. So
I think, let's say first version, because I assume, it's still improving. It's always improving, but
so we started yeah, again, there's a lot of background stuff that I can share here. It is just I don't know how much time you wanna consume on
Well, we
this.
need to fit into like 30 minutes, so
Okay.
I leave that up to you.
So the company, well, the company that is closer to what we're doing today, but not the original, not today's company, um, it's called Ex Machina, EXM.gr,
Mhm.
which is the Greek company that we founded in 2015 with the team that we are today, basically.
Mhm.
So in 2015, we were doing environmental IoT, industrial IoT projects for large enterprises like the Athens airport or motorways or energy utility companies and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And so at the time, we were deploying various sensors, and one of them, well, the typical thing that we had to deploy in most of our projects was a weather station. So we came across
I see.
uh, a number of challenges. Like the number one was that weather stations are really, really legacy, old school technology because they are designed for governance and universities. So the options we had at the time in 2015 were very limited, and the personal weather stations were slightly more modern, yet extremely um, old in our point of view as engineers. So the
Sure.
technologies they were using. So if you think about it, in 2015, it wasn't even obvious that a weather station has to be connected to the internet. So there were a lot of options there of weather stations
Right.
that you download the data with a USB stick or something. Like
Right.
it sounded crazy to us. And at the same time, we were the Athens, we were the team that pushed LoRaWAN as a technology in Greece. We were
Mhm.
part of the Things network, which is in a way the European Helium,
Yep.
which, if I'm not mistaken, it started before Helium as a community project. So that's around
That's
2015,
possible. Yeah.
and without any incentive, it was for the benefit of the mankind, of the humankind, and so we can all learn. So we joined that movement. We set it up the first public LoRaWAN infrastructure in Athens. We did a couple of commercial projects with private networks using LoRaWAN sensors. So at that time, we were assembling our own hardware, but we were not manufacturing hardware. So we were picking up components off the market, and we
Mhm.
were writing our own firmware. So we were choosing open source, open hardware components, devices, IoT nodes, and we were developing our own firmware, and we were connecting our own sensors. So we were, assembling our own products in a way, which is similar to what Helium was doing at the same time. And
Yeah.
and we were completely disappointed with the result, because so from one end we had really bad weather stations, the complete solutions, and then we were trying to do something better, but we were using components that they were not ideal for what we wanted to achieve. For example, there wasn't hardware that could support Wi-Fi and LoRaWAN and Bluetooth and 4G at the same time.
Right.
That was an overkill, and we thought that should be mandatory. Like, why restrict a weather station the capability to communicate with multiple protocols, and just to save like $5 or $1 in components.
I can
Um,
totally see the engineering mind in this,
yeah, and
not the
obviously
business
that's
mind.
not the entrepreneurs, that's the engineers. Like, let's put as many features as we can into this. So to answer your question, in 2018, after we had assembled a lot of Frankenstein hardware, like we were combining 3D printing plastics and combining components and writing our own firmware and hacking existing PCBs so we can add or change functionality. It was in 2018 that we decided we're going to do our own thing from scratch and put it into mass manufacturing. And
Finally.
and still there's no crypto there.
Right.
And So we applied to HAX. HAX is the world's largest or most famous hardware accelerator.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a part
Remember.
of SOSV.
Hmm.
It's a big VC. And we went to Shenzhen. 4 people from the team relocated to Shenzhen for 4 months in an effort to build our own weather station from scratch. And actually, I have the first prototype here.
Ha. Let's see it.
Well, I have parts of the first prototype. So these
Nice.
are some parts. This thing evolved into, well, there were many versions of this, but essentially evolved into this PCB,
Hmm.
and which supports LoRaWAN. It has 4G from the top, and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which is that's what we thought at the time was the most important aspect, to have multiple communication protocols. And also, we innovated in a number of things. We tried to design our own solid state sensors, so we can detect precipitation, um, and hail, and a number of other things, and wind, without
Okay.
having any moving parts.
Hmm.
Um, so we created a lot of low-level sensors that we were hoping with machine learning we could train them to be accurate,
I
even
see.
though the sensors started from scratch by our design. Long story short, this consumed the entire 2018 and a lot of energy from our end. And this
Hmm.
product never made it to mass production. So we just had engineering samples.
Hmm.
We collaborated with factories, but we never put it into production. And we kind of skipped that and went to more mature products that existed in the market already. But we were talking with the factories that were producing them, so we had the luxury of modifying the electronics to suit our needs, so we didn't
Hmm.
have to start from scratch. So the products that you see in the market today out of WeatherXM, they were built in that way. We had all the knowledge of starting from scratch, and then we stopped that effort and went to existing off the market products, and we modified the electronics and the firmware and branded it as ours.
Hmm. Well, I think so. It's definitely a long journey, but nevertheless pretty impressive. And I think there's nothing wrong if, somebody's making something you can use and it's already good. Why not to use it? But by trying to make your own thing, you usually learn a lot of things which would be otherwise hidden. So that's impressive. That the part when the teams from Hex go actually to Shenzhen always seemed very interesting and good. They're like well designed from the acceleration perspective to me. So I'm happy to finally, talk to someone for whom it worked in a way.
Well, we've done a huge pivot since then. The crypto pivot, we did that in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and essentially what what we did there is, we didn't only change completely the business model and everything. We had to do a major change in the hardware, and create a hardware that didn't exist essentially, and still doesn't exist outside of our ecosystem, which is a weather station that has cryptographic proofs. So it's a weather station that signs the payload, signs the data of the sensors
Mm-hmm.
with a crypto chip, so it can prove later. So the data that we produce, we can prove that they were produced by this specific device at that specific point in time from that specific location, because we also have GPS data
Mm-hmm.
and secure communication between the microcontroller and the GPS. And that was so easy for us to do at that time in 2019 when we decided. So in 2019, we decided, let's explore this Web3 spin and the Helium approach and so on. And because we had all this experience, because we were already, we had a product in the market for almost 1 year, more than a year, with our own PCB, with our own firmware, that we were, constantly improving almost on a daily basis. And we had a lot of experience from all that. It was very easy to just add the crypto element to this.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
it wouldn't have been, and we wouldn't come up with this idea if we didn't have all this experience.
True. What I'm thinking now is, as you said it, so in 2019, I think it was definitely far from obvious that, the time when everybody will want everything signed and somehow confirmed that it's really what it is, saying it is. It wasn't definitely obvious. I think it's pretty obvious now, right? So everybody will want to sign everything, really, just to, make sure that if I'm saying I wrote this, this is really mine. If you're saying this is from this weather station, it really is. And so it was a great foresight. Were you guys, very drawn towards the crypto pivot because of the kind of helium early successes, or was it because it was always at the back of your mind and you just didn't know how to fit it in?
So we were looking at IPFS as a cool technology.
Sure.
And so then we were looking at Filecoin as a cool business model. And I was, to be honest, I preferred the Filecoin concept than Bitcoin itself, because to me, having a utility attached to the coin that is powering this ecosystem, it makes a lot more sense than just having something that we all have to agree that has value. So Filecoin was the first influence, let's say, and then Helium, in the sense that we were already part of the Things Network ecosystem. So we had a very good idea what's happening in the Things Network. And when Helium did the first steps, we were looking at it and thinking, typical Americans, they're attaching, they're putting fuel, they're putting gasoline into the whole, monetary value by using crypto. Let's see how this goes. And then obviously it went very well. And we were thinking like, well, we can combine the three concepts like Filecoin, Helium, and weather into what you see today, basically.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because so there's a big community, right, in the crypto space, which are like Bitcoin diehards, and they think Bitcoin is everything. And my background is actually finance and statistics, even though I worked the whole life in tech and startups. And I had access to Bitcoin fairly early, but I never really saw it as anything interesting. And I mean, it's okay if you want to have some. So I'm all for the concept of like self-custody, and keep your own wallets, have your own keys, some privacy, ideally, as well. And but the concept, like, let's have global money, which is called Bitcoin, and let's just trust it because it's algorithmically, run, didn't really appeal to me as well, compared to Ethereum, where, the whole ecosystem kind of makes sense. So you want to do some automations, you want to run some things, you want to do something with it, not just, look at it and say, oh, this is digital gold. So yeah, I totally understand that. Can I, it just begs question, the device behind you, is it the newest prototype? Is it the current thing which you guys are selling? What's that?
So this one on my head, that I should create a cup and put that on top. So that's the first generation. But this one here is actually one of the oldest ones. So this is what we were selling before we did the crypto pivot. So this is a gateway, an IoT gateway that supports all the protocols. This one is the outdoor sensors that we combined with the where's the camera here? With the first product that we shipped. So this is the M5 stack. We combined this with those outdoor sensors, and that is today the Wi-Fi solution. Then we did. This is the second version of our hardware, or second family of hardware. This is the Helium compatible one. So this is autonomous in the sense that it doesn't require any other gateway than the Helium gateway, which they are distributed already. So it works as is. And the latest version is this one. So this is, in a way, an improved version of what we had a few years ago.
I see.
We've built this again in a collaboration with another company, and we are doing the firmware from scratch.
It looks very sleek.
Yeah, it's very sexy. It has all this is the solar panel, and it's very modular. So it has two slots here that you can insert cartridges that support different protocols. And the beauty here is that we can support many different types of weather equipment, weather stations, weather sensors. And so we can move closer to industrial use cases, because we have a lot of customers now that are asking for more expensive, let's say, equipment. And that opens the door to that.
Very nice. Yeah, love that. Once I will settle down again somewhere, I have to get one of those. So let's come back to the project. So that was around 2019. You mentioned that you guys moved in the direction of Filecoin/Helium idea. And so let's take it from there. Where are you now?
Okay, so what happened is, like, let me take you from there to today, actually, very quickly. So in 2019, we were actually exploring business models and use cases that had data sovereignty attached to them. So we were thinking, like, we should do a solution for farmers that is precision agriculture oriented with weather data, but yet all the data end up in Filecoin or IPFS, and then the end user has ownership on the data and they can control what happens. So this is like, initially we didn't think that we should just do Helium for weather. Initially we thought that we should do something to go against the stream of centralized ownership of data, basically by large corporations. So I think that the first idea there was like, let's have that fight with the big companies. And so when we were working in that space, in that sector, we thought it was necessary to have the hardware connected directly with some kind of decentralized technology, so it can offload the data without having a centralized entity in the middle. So the first ever prototype or proof of concept that we did was having one of the weather stations connecting directly to IPFS and offloading the weather data assigned there. And there, okay, so who cares? Like, okay, maybe that's cool from a technology perspective, but we were trying to make some sense, business sense out of this. So we thought, okay, let's connect this with a Chainlink, with using the Chainlink protocol. Let's connect it to an Ethereum smart contract that is pretending to be a parametric weather insurance. Okay. So we did a very simple proof of concept where you buy some kind of weather protection, and that protection is triggered by the hardware directly, and you get paid compensation without having to have an entity in the middle. And we released this as an open source project, so it's somewhere in our repo at 2019. And while we were exploring all these ideas, and at that time we didn't think that doing helium for weather was a good idea, because it felt like it's too much. It felt like this is too complicated for such a small team to handle. And that's why we were exploring the agriculture solution space. So when we launched that, when we released that project, that proof of concept, we kind of advertised it in a Chainlink hackathon, I think, where Protocol Labs was sponsored. So they found it in the end. So Consensus and Protocol Labs came to us and suggested that we should pursue this as a venture, as a startup idea. And initially we were like, no, we're okay. I mean, we have a business already. We have a company. We know this was just an experiment, just to get an idea on the Web3 space. But in the end, it was them actually who convinced us that we can pull off the helium for weather idea, which sounded crazy at the time. But we were in a position to communicate it to them. So we joined the Tachyon Accelerator. That's the name of the second accelerator that we have joined, which was Consensus and Protocol Labs made. And that's basically when the project had formed in the figure that you see today.
Okay, when was that? Was it
practically it's in 2020. So I think WeatherXM.com as a website was launched then in 2020. We started pre-selling hardware, I think at the end of somewhere there, like end of the summer, beginning of winter of 20. And to be honest, we were selling hardware at that point. We were selling hardware that we knew we were capable of producing, but we didn't have. So we were pre-selling an idea, and a lot of people supported us at that point. There were a lot of people buying the hardware when there was not a lot of information about the project, or it was a big risk, I think, to buy that hardware at that time from an outsider's perspective. And those poor people had to wait for many months to receive the first devices.
Well, I think, probably everybody who was supporting you already had the Kickstarter experience. Like, things are still coming like 2 years after the deadline. Sometimes, teams make it finally. It's just not on a timeline. So you basically just like something you see, you buy it, and then you forget about it. And when the package shows up, it's just like, oh, nice surprise. Okay, so what happened with the previous company? Did you guys merge those two, or you are basically sitting on two chairs now?
Yeah, well, kind of. So the old company, the Greek entity, is still here, alive. It's just that we have reduced the scope to. It has kept a couple of large enterprise customers that we had long contracts with, so we had to keep them. And it was initially the company that we used to manufacture the hardware, because what happened later on was at the end of 2021, we did our first fundraise, proper fundraise, seed round, because the accelerators were giving us some capital as well, but obviously it was very limited. So at the end of 2001, we did a funding round of 5 million with placeholder VC, Chris Brunitsky, was leading the round.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we still didn't have an entity to put that money in.
I see. Yeah, very
And
common.
we didn't have any other entity than the Greek entity to produce the hardware either.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were already producing hardware. We were already, I think we were, I'm not sure, maybe I'm mistaking the dates, but we were already in production because we had a lot of pre-sales at that point. So, so we started with, so we created a new company in Switzerland, beginning of 2022, to benefit from a mature crypto legislation environment, which at the time was nowhere to be found and still is a little bit, gray. So we wanted, so we're engineers and we wanted to have like a conservative approach when it comes to the legal aspect of things. So we wanted to find an environment where what we did was not considered, dodgy or anything.
Sure.
So Switzerland at that time had a mature framework. They had a distinction between what is a security, what is a utility token, and so on. So that's why we decided to found the company in Switzerland, even though none of us has anything to do with Switzerland.
Sure.
And so we created the company in 2022. We received the capital from the funding round, but we still had the old Greek company that was producing the hardware. So we kind of within the year of 2022, we kind of separated those two entities. And by the way, this is another thing that we are just doing this year. We are separating the network from the company because in November we founded the association in Switzerland that is in charge of the network. That's the legal wrapper of the DAO. Okay. So we have to go through this process again of separating some stuff that we have in the company. We have to hand it over to the network now.
Gotcha.
So initially it was the hardware. Now it's more than the hardware.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think just a quick follow-up questions. So how many devices have you guys sold? I mean, the ones which are actually the WeatherXM network right now.
So we have manufactured almost 8,000 units in these three types of devices that I mentioned. We have sold around 6,000 at this point, and 4,000 are connected.
Okay,
on the network.
Nice. So basically means... Sorry, just finish your thought.
Yeah, I was saying that distributed in more than 80 countries. So that's a very good... I mean, obviously, most of the stations are US and EU based, but overall, we have a very good distribution on a worldwide scale. That's visible in the explorer.weatherxm.com.
So basically, if I go to the website now and I buy the station, I am not really pre-ordering it. It's actually ready to be shipped.
We have stock. Yeah, we have 8,000. So we still have 2,000 in stock, and we're actually organizing the next batches of manufacturing at this point because we expect there will be a lot of demand this year.
Cool. Is there... So I think, when I checked, it kind of looked that it's pretty, let's say, almost pro level weather station. Are there any plans that you guys would go like, kind of scale it down to, achieve, let's say, more acceptable price points for like certain parts of the world, or no plans at the moment?
Yes, but not in the way that you're thinking about it. So first of all, this is like the lowest cost weather station that you can have that is decent enough to produce data that are usable. So if you go lower in terms of hardware, I think it doesn't make sense. It's not the quality of the data that we would collect. It wouldn't have a lot of value. And even at this range, we still have a lot of trouble fine tuning some elements here, because what we're selling at the $400 range, what we're selling is a low cost, all in one personal weather station, essentially. So it's already a stretch to use that hardware for industrial applications. So we have customers where the cost of deployment is multiple times higher than the cost of the hardware. So
that makes no sense.
If they have to visit the space again to do a repair or something, it doesn't make sense for them to have so cheap hardware. They would rather spend 5-10 times more and never have to visit the place again. And that's what the 4G generation unlocks in a way. But also that's what the community provides as well. So that hardware is perfectly suited for the community approach, where you put the weather station to your backyard, and if something goes wrong, it's easy. You can maintain it. You take it down. You spray it with WD-40, or you clean it, or you replace a component, or you change the batteries. We're using AA batteries on those stations. So it's not very industrial if you think about it.
Right. No, so you got me there. Obviously, my lack of experience.
For the developing countries, though, for emerging markets and for this is our top priority, to be honest. And so we do want to see our network evolve in places that don't have weather infrastructure, because we come from a poor place ourselves. I mean, most of the team is based in Greece. Greece is an agriculture place where the infrastructure is really not there in any way you see it, at least in my point of view. So we really understand this problem, and we want to prioritize for countries that don't have the luxury of an expensive, mature weather infrastructure. But the way to solve this problem is not by dropping the cost of the hardware lower, because we think it's already quite low, but it's trying different business models. And one of the things that we're going to try in the next few weeks, actually, hopefully it will be announced soon. So this is an alpha. This is a first. We have been working on this idea of decoupling the owner from the operator of a weather station. And so we want to have somebody paying for the capital expense of the hardware, benefiting from the rewards, but transferring the operation burden to a different person, to somebody in a developing country that actually needs the weather data more than the owner of the station, who's probably in a rich country that has decent weather infrastructure already. So we are trying to set up the mechanism to manage this thing. So there is a donor and a grantee in this concept, but the donor is like an impact investment. Like it's not exactly a clean donorship. So we have been exploring these ideas with Gitcoin and Giveth and some centralized exchanges, and we're trying to find a balance where parts of this process take place in a pure donation platform, and then other parts take place in places that people are more familiar with those ideas of assigning, sharing, let's say, benefits and rewards of the projects that they support in the Web3 space.
That's actually super interesting. Didn't cross my mind directly as an option, but I remember discussing similar idea with one of the projects which was working on some network hardware, and it totally makes sense. I think, of course, if you can somehow align the incentives, so there needs to be the need on both sides for something. But I I think in your case, definitely seems like it might work. So what are the next steps for 2024 for WeatherXM?
Yeah, so we've been all this time. Our token has been on a testnet, and we made it so far without having to use without doing the traditional things that other crypto projects did when they started, in a way. So we wanted to build the infrastructure first. We wanted to create value of our ideas, and then do the token launch. So we recently moved. We did a lot of changes in the project as well. So we moved from Polygon to Arbitrum and Ethereum. So it's a hybrid thing. So the plan is for next month probably to go on Mainnet. So that essentially officially means the launching the token. Yes.
Another alpha. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think we mentioned it in our community like a few days ago. But yeah, it's fresh news. Not everybody knows this, and yeah. So we are planning to move the token rewards, on Mainnet in February, and this unlocks a lot of new opportunities and new ideas that we have been working on all this time. For example, collaborations with other projects that are on chain.
Sure.
In many different directions, like whether it's from the parametric weather insurance stuff that we have been explored, or obviously we have continued to explore, or other ways that we can produce weather services that are meaningful for B2B companies, for Web 2 companies as well. Because, at the end of the day, we produce weather data, we produce improved weather forecasts, and that's a service that a lot of companies need, and they don't care how it is made, and they don't care about the crypto aspect of things. They just want the weather data in areas that no weather data existed, or a more accurate weather forecast.
Yeah, I can imagine. Not that I'm an expert in, weather B2B things, but I can imagine there, if there is a simple, accessible, and let's say cost acceptable way to get weather data, there might be a huge interest, basically, from almost anybody who has anything to do from like tourism, agriculture, obviously insurance, or utilities, basically everybody who's already buying the data, plus many more who don't, and who just now use the sucky weather app, which tells you it's going to rain and it's sunshine. Yeah, so I totally see that. Okay, that looks very exciting. Anything else you would like to add? Because we touched on like 40 minutes, so I want to be mindful of your time, and also try to keep it relatively concise. So anything else you want to shout out?
Not that I can think of right now. I mean, our priorities right now is to focus on the token launch, and then the new hardware that is ready for some time now, but we haven't shipped it yet. The 4G we're still delaying it so we can focus on one thing at a time. We're also fundraising, so there's a lot of things happening in the next 1-2 months. Fundraising from VCs,
Sure,
not from the top. So yeah, I think we have enough in our plate for 2024, and it's going to be I think it's going to be an exciting year for all crypto projects anyway, and especially for Depin, which is picking up popularity. So I'm really excited that we have positioned ourselves at this spot at this point in time, by all the work that has happened in the past.
So yeah, totally. Definitely looks like an exciting year ahead of you guys. I wish you success with the fundraising, of course. It shouldn't be a problem. And everybody go check the WeatherXM because the devices look awesome. And you can have your own weather station. Who can say that? Come on. Thank you very much, Manos. It was great pleasure talking to you. And I hope to see you or some of your colleagues in the future with some
Sure.
updates. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
And that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to connect with my guest, or if you're interested in some of the points that were discussed today, just check the show notes for links. And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. Also, if you are compelled, please leave a review. It helps others to find the podcast, and you can surely share it with your friends to save them the trouble of discovery process. I definitely hope you would do that for me. One more thing, from January 2024, there is an option for the interested collectors to mint the episode or just the episode's art, which is always uniquely created by me for each guest and project. So go check the show notes to find out more. Until next time, keep it colorful and stay positive, friends. Ciao.